Today's Wednesday, October 20th, and it's Business and Robot Day 2021, because sometimes the algorithm is like, it's 2027, here, enjoy this video.
Do you think the algorithm knows enough not to recommend if we say that in the first 7 words?
Maybe by then it will, but certainly not today.
Somebody's working on that right now. He wanted to push it before end of the day Friday, but he wasn't able to.
What's crazy is the algorithm doesn't really, like, we do some good content that is evergreen, and the algorithm does not care. And then sometimes it's like, oh, we should promote old videos, and it's like that. Why are you so schizophrenic, algorithm? Why?
Well, because it's got one team trying to make it good, and it's got another team trying to make it woke. And the two cannot. It's oil and water. They can't come together. So it's out there just like trying to please two masters, knowing that it can't, and becoming violent.
And we all suffer as a result.
Greatly. Now, there's another algorithm that is not so schizophrenic. It actually only goes in one direction, but it might not be the best direction.
The algorithm is make Amazon more money. The headline is above better rated products. So this is a story about how...
Oh, is that just part of the... Oh, is that really the headline?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah. This is a story about Amazon and Amazon Basics products being ahead of better rated competitor products. And as someone who has ordered Amazon Basics USB-C cables and DisplayPort cables, let me tell you, don't.
So this guy they talked to, Robert Gomez, sells coffee grinders. Apparently he has a pretty nice coffee grinder, and he puts a lot of effort into pleasing his customers and keeping everything good and responding to complaints. And
artisanal coffee grinders.
And this is the biggest kicker. $40,000 a month, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
$40,000 a month to Amazon for advertising. What do you get for $40,000 a month from Amazon for advertising? You get to be below the Amazon Basics version of the same product. And they will source your supplier to make their product because they know everything about you.
They will not only source your supplier, they will demand to know who your supplier is to fight their counterfeit products problem, and then contact your supplier directly from that information. This is not the first time this has happened. You should also look into the whole tripods and camera bags thing, because the people that make those did a really nice video on how it was like, hey, Amazon really needed to know who our supplier was to be sure that we weren't making fake bags. But it's like, we're our supplier. We designed this bag. We have it manufactured. We don't have any unhappy customers. Why would Amazon need to know who we're buying them from? And it turns out it was so that they could make their own.
And boy, does it work. They sell so much of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they point out several other examples. That one is certainly not alone. That not only did Amazon have their own version of it, but then there was another Dr. Mill brand or something like that, which he found out they were associated with. So they put two brands ahead of him. And he argues that they're both inferior products.
Well, he needs to contact Miss Lena Khan, who will arrange for his happy retirement at the behest of Amazon's coffers.
Yeah, what do you think her callback list looks like at this point? How many people are on that?
I would think with her upcoming cases, this guy's going to be near the top of the list.
She probably would be happy, but
it's such a slam dunk case.
Is it though? I mean, the Amazon lawyers are going to stretch it out if nothing else.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, look at Jedi.
Stretching it out at the next administration.
Yeah, we've seen what they can do there. Well, if you're in the market for a new laptop, probably not the best time to buy one.
No.
Probably not the best time to buy anything right now. But if you need
groceries, if you need groceries.
Not a good time to buy those. Don't buy those. But if you need one and you need to be extra clean because you're filthy, if you're a filthy person, Acer has got you taken care of. Now, recall, once you buy from them, your info will be leaked because it's like a sieve over there at Acer. But hey, this is a nice laptop, right?
Acer launches the bacteria-resistant PCs. It has embedded silver ionized silver particles or whatever into the trackpad and the buttons to kill
and the
surface bacteria.
And the screen if it's a touch.
If it's a touch screen.
Yeah.
So.
Not the most attractive PCs in the world, but that's not what they're about.
I had one of those Samsung washers that had the silver care thing in it, and that worked fabulously well for like 3 or 4 years. Because you know how like sometimes you get some things, and when you wash them, they smell immediately really kind of musty, and it would kill that every time. And then it stopped working about 3 or 4 years in.
Could you go like buy a Silver Eagle and stuff it in there and have that?
I'm sure there's something somewhere in there that's like that. I don't know.
Yeah, silver does kill bacteria, but I wonder how effective that really is.
It was. I liked it in my washing machine until it stopped working.
Yeah, but your washing machine is, like it's getting it hot, it's circulating it,
Yeah,
it's got
that's
time
true.
to work on it. This is just touching it.
Yeah.
If you're just, your hands are just maybe have a little bit of bacteria on them or a virus, then maybe. But if they're caked in, sugar and ketchup, I don't think it's going to help you.
You got to be able to hose your laptop off in that case.
Here's a blast from the past. Do you remember Palm? The Palm Pilot?
Oh, the Palm Pilot's the original handheld computer with awful handwriting recognition.
And for a long time, that was the... remember when you could carry around a computer and be like, look at this idiot. People would be they would cast you out of society. Now everybody's doing it.
Palm is trying to make a comeback, but this time with a pair of earbuds. We've all been busy. We haven't been relevant in 10 years. That's not busy. Those are different.
Some amorphous blobs in the background that make us think that they're probably selling us an earbud. And it's probably going to be like Apple's.
It's healthy to escape the noise of the world sometimes. Soon, you'll be able to.
You're already able to.
Yeah.
Everybody sells these.
Yeah.
What's the one that advertises on every single podcast in the universe? Raycon.
Except us.
There is no podcast that Raycon has not reached out to for advertising.
It's probably in my spam folder.
Well, we've in the past we've looked at a lot of companies that went to China and were then chastised by the Communist Party, and they said, "Ooh, okay, well, maybe we can't run our service
I
here."
really think this should be bigger news because this is a bigger story.
Well, I mean, the Wall Street Journal's running it.
Well, no, I mean they didn't. They didn't talk about the those researchers that they were pressured to remove from the American version of LinkedIn,
Right, yeah.
and they didn't talk about the dudes in Beijing that they were pressured to just remove entirely.
Yeah. So recent headlines of LinkedIn in China have shown that Microsoft was doing everything they could to keep China happy, and it wasn't working. China was not a fan of LinkedIn. Apparently, they have ultimately failed.
Microsoft folds its LinkedIn social media service in China. This article says that Microsoft cited that there was unspecified regulatory and compliance hurdles that they encountered. But apparently whoever wrote this article didn't do any research at all because the stuff that they encountered, there's 2 really huge things that they encountered. One, there were some academics here in the U.S. that mentioned some stuff about China, and they wanted their profiles blacklisted, like taken off. And
They were critical. They had expats who were critical.
yeah, and then there were some academics in Beijing, and their stuff was just completely removed entirely.
But there was also some guys in Taiwan
Yeah,
who had fled,
yeah.
and they were just trying to control it. So ultimately, just can't do it.
No.
Just leave, or we won't let you do all your other stuff here. You know how many licenses you sell for Windows over here?
That's probably the threat. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, you know what? We don't need LinkedIn. We only made $8 last year on LinkedIn. We don't need it.
This story is, it's like one of those headlines where that the chip shortage is getting serious. You know that they did everything they could. They were willing to pay any price to get these parts, and they couldn't.
I smelled something fishy with this, and I found something, but I'll share the headline. Apple is going to scale back its iPhone production goals for the next version of the iPhone due to the global chip shortage. So the iPhone 13 launched a couple of weeks ago, right? And the numbers were really, really good. The iPhone 13 sales numbers actually were better than anybody expected. But they've also taken a nosedive, and it's probably not from availability. So I think Apple has got a lot of backlog of the iPhone 13 that they're looking to sell. And this is production cut or whatever is really to just extend the timeline. So maybe the iPhone is going to push into 2022 for the next version.
Certainly, if you look at
2023.
If you look at any of the inflation headlines, the consumer is not going to have that extra money
No.
for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Because just groceries
Yeah.
is going to kill you.
So I think what's really happening here is Apple is hedging their bets, and they're saying, "Oh, it's a chip shortage," but it's a win-win for Apple. Even if it's not a chip shortage, if they just push the timeline out, it's already a sunk cost in those other phones. So if they just stockpile the current phones, it's fine.
Plus, you control the narrative.
Yeah.
Oh no, we don't have suffering sales. Oh, shareholders, don't worry. We're doing this because of the chip shortage.
Yeah. And the iPhone 13 sales, like the debut sales, were actually pretty good. But that's probably because there's a lot of people that held onto their phone an extra year or two through the global situation. And now the battery, even though they've had it on charge constantly because they've been working from home for the last 2 years, the battery is basically destroyed. Speaking of misleading Apple narratives,
we could definitely reduce the Apple release cycle to biannual. Nobody would care. I mean,
no one would
change
care.
anything.
No.
It's the same. They're selling you the same thing every year.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah, this is crazy because a lot of people argue. Well, isn't the EU going after them?
Yes.
Because the EU says, "Hey, you know what? It's clutter. We're throwing away all these things. It makes more sense. Why don't we do a universal charging port?" And Apple's like, "I don't think we could do that." Biggest problem we have, we can't get it small enough. We can't make it work with our stuff. I'm sorry, we just can't do it. Which was perhaps a lie.
iPhone gets USB-C thanks to a creative robotics engineer. So this guy took his iPhone apart and reverse engineered the lightning connector, figured out how to design a USB-C connector to do that, had some of them made. This is a months-long process. And then retrofit it inside the iPhone. And yeah, it works great. Works fine.
Now that took him months because he's a hobbyist and he was doing it in his spare time. It would have taken Apple engineers the better part of a week.
There probably is a USB-C prototype because they're like, we don't know if the EU is going to make us do this year or next year. Let's have this in our back pocket and be ready. Because Apple cannot be trusted to be honest about such things.
Well, none of these companies can. It's in their best interest to lie to you almost every time.
It's just frustrating.
Now, we thought that we had seen the end of the argument. Actually, nobody thought that. But the big Epic case.
Apple beat Epic to file the appeal. I was slightly surprised by that, but I think we predicted that.
But it's not over. And not only is it not over, but the big arguments at the bedrock of this whole thing are just still raging on, and we're still hearing the same tired excuses.
Apple argues against allowing app sideloading by pointing out Android's malware figures. What Apple doesn't seem to want to talk about is that a lot of that malware actually comes from the Google Play Store, not sideloading.
Right. I don't. If you could actually run those numbers of people who got malware from sideloading, because the kind of person who sideloads and the kind of person who falls victim to malware, not always in the same bubble.
That's a Venn diagram. That is a very small sliver in the middle.
There's going to be a crossover, sure. There's some people who I'm a elite hacker user and I'm going to sideload. They don't have any idea what they're doing. They're just banging on stuff, and you could get caught up in that. But it's such a small.
I like Tim Sweeney from Epic. He had a completely different take on this. He's like, all right, we will agree to abide by whatever content restrictions and controls that you want to put in place in the Apple Store. And I guarantee you the Epic Store is going to be way more stringent and way more on the ball than the Apple Store, because here's a huge list of applications in the Apple App Store that are malicious right now today. And it was like, holy crap, dude.
And those lists are out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Apple could get them from other people. They just don't care.
Yeah.
Google is part of that little menage a trois, and they were always obviously the one that got compared to Apple, just like that story. Hey, if we don't do this draconian thing, we might end up like these slums over here. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to live in the Play Store. So they got treated differently, but Google wasn't really the good guy in Epic's eyes either, because they did something that Epic really didn't like.
Google says Fortnite's in-app purchase swap was a breach of contract and has now sued Epic. So Google is looking at the ruling in Apple versus Epic, where the judge said that Epic violated its contract. And even though the contract was not, the part of the contract that was not legal under U.S. law has to do with the payment thing, she still awarded Apple damages for breach of contract, the loss of the revenue from revenue share, because Epic bypass that. And so Google has said, well, if Epic is going to give Apple money for that, we're entitled to money too, even though they allowed application sideloading, because they also modified the application to bypass Google's payment thing. They're also okay. I think this might not actually work out for Google in the end because of the whole sideloading thing. If application sideloading is allowed, then this should be okay.
But at the same time, I think it helps their argument because they tried to find the middle ground and still, in their eyes, got screwed.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Yeah, in 3 or 4 years. I brought this up last time, I think, when this was first announced, and we didn't even know the name of it yet. But it's what kind of crazy world do we live in when people are super hyped about an anti-cheat and an anti-cheat that runs basically on the bare metal? Remember when we got up in arms the first time they did this?
Remember when we got an up in arms when Sony deployed a rootkit that mysteriously broke your ability to burn CDs?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the DRM stuff happened before then, didn't it? We've had root level, but kernel level drivers.
The Sony one was the next level insidious because they didn't talk about it, and it was not well known, and it was a kernel level driver that tried to detect if you were burning an audio CD, and it would cause it to mysteriously fail, but it otherwise didn't interfere with your ability to burn CDs. It was very, very surreptitious, very malicious, very, very low level.
And when you are at that level, when you're at the kernel level, you can be as malicious as you want. There's nothing that can stop you. And yet people are celebrating it.
Activision unveils Ricochet, anti-cheat system for Call of Duty. It's going to gather a whole bunch of data points about your system, and it's going to forward that. And they would never, ever use any of the data that they gather for marketing or analytics or, any other purpose other than anti-cheat. And it definitely won't make your system more unstable by having more crap that runs at the kernel level. No, that's totally fine.
Now they claim, and we've heard this before from other DRMs. This is not necessarily a DRM. This is an anti-cheat, but it's the same kind of thing. They say that it's only going to run while Call of Duty is running. I say that's a lie.
It can't physically do that because it's at the kernel level.
Here we are, folks. So this is their new game is coming out. That will get it first, and then Warzone, Vanguard is the new game. That will get it first, and then Warzone will get a DLC, or maybe it's a free update, and that will add it to that. And then after that point, I don't think you can play Warzone unless you do that.
Great.
It's bad.
It's probably, if they're willing to do this, they're willing to also, go the extra mile to be like, oh, you can't run this in a virtual machine either, which is interesting.
Oh, no.
But, Windows 11 has built-in virtualization. Like, one of its strategies for maintaining application security is to run each application in its own little sandbox. And so that's functionally not going to be a lot different than running it in a virtual machine on Linux.
They'll detect that and disable it.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's for your own safety, just like Apple says, right? It's just keeping people safe.
All this headache, and ultimately it was not effective.
Well, Windows 11, it's been out for a little while. We've gotten a chance to see it. It maybe doesn't have the massive problems that some people were expecting, but it definitely has problems, especially if you have early adopted new hardware.
Windows 11's first update, we got one patch Tuesday behind us, makes AMD CPU performance even worse. So when it launched, we said, hey, by the way, there's a little bit of a problem with the cache latency on Windows 11. They tweaked the scheduler a bunch for Alder Lake. They left people that use Threadripper and Ryzen out in the cold. It's like, oh, you got a high-end 32-core processor? It'd be a shame if something happened to that. Then they issued a Windows update. And the Windows update, it makes it better for the first 10 minutes of boot, and then after that, it's worse.
It's the L3 cache. The hits to the L3 cache take way longer.
Literally the best thing about AMD processors. And this is what's the first? The first time is incompetence. The second time is malice, right? That's how that works.
You think the old Wintel associations are still strong?
Alder Lake is getting ready to launch, and Alder Lake has got a hardware scheduler, and it's got all these really cool new features. It sure does. The optics of this does not look good.
Didn't they get in trouble for that?
Something's rotten in Denmark, y'all.
And we found another problem, but I am taking Microsoft's side on this one.
Yeah.
As someone who has had to deal with some idiot using extended characters on a web form, and then all of a sudden my weekend is ruined. Microsoft not the problem here. People using extended characters are the worst people in the universe.
Microsoft warns of a new Windows 11 problem with apps using unusual registry keys. Those unusual registry keys, extended ASCII characters, and emojis in the registry.
Now, do you think this is called the Coke? What does that accent mean?
I don't know. The Coke browser.
I'm not going to say the alternative because we'll get demonetized. But anyway, that is the offender. And not only is that stupid name the name of their browser, but it's also in the registry key with those little accents.
And so Windows 10 works with that just fine. Windows 11, not so much.
Which is weird. Like, why would they rewrite that? That was fine. We all need chips. There's not enough chips for anything. And I'm not talking about Lay's and Doritos. Talking about transistors. And got to build new ones. We get excited when they're in our country, but every country wants them. And Japan is saying, hey, bro, we're going to pay for half. Bring it here.
Sony and TSMC have joined forces on a new $7 billion chip plant in Japan. Sony said, we're really excited about this. Sony's actually spinning off a whole other company to help manage the fab, and TSMC has said that they're pretty excited about this as well.
Yeah, they're pretty. They've been the prettiest girl at the dance for years now. They should be excited. Who doesn't want a piece of TSMC right now?
It's just...
Oh boy, Spectrum Internet. I gotta have them next week, right? While they trench my basement out for the sump, I have to go back to cable. I had to do it this morning. And it's terrible. I went from symmetrical gigabit back to the cable connection because literally the cable that goes in the basement, they were destroying things. I had to take it out, and it's just like, oh god, make it stop. And then all next week, I got to deal with it again. But after that, I get to go visit them and give them all their garbage back and cancel, and I can't wait. But they hate that. They'll do anything to stop you.
The Los Angeles Times has this column: renew your service or we will trash your credit score, Spectrum tells an ex-customer. So Spectrum got this letter, or a Spectrum customer got this letter, and it's like, hey, we noticed that you have unpaid bills. Spoiler alert, he did not. And if you come back to us as a customer, we will write off the bills that you owe. We won't report it to a credit agency, and all is forgiven. And we'll also give you this introductory rate that only lasts for like a year. But the problem is that that person didn't actually have any bills that were written off, and it was written almost like a threat, like, we'll find some bills, don't worry.
Are you saying that my car warranty might not be expired?
Yeah, so when I got off the thing, I returned all the equipment, but I used my phone to take pictures of, like, selfies with the guy and the equipment and the MAC addresses.
Did they give you a receipt? Because I'm going to demand a receipt for sure.
No, I didn't they would not give me a receipt, which is why I was like, I'm going to take pictures.
Oh my God.
Sure enough, 3 months later, I got a bill and it was like, you didn't return the remote, you didn't return this thing, you didn't return this other thing. I was on hold for 3 hours and I was like, give me an email address where I can send this. And they're like, we don't have an email address. And I was like, what even?
Give me a physical address, I'll print it.
That's what I ended up doing. And I got one more thing saying that they were going to turn it over to collections, and I was like, I hope you do, because if you do, it's going to be insane. They did not turn it over to collections, and it went away.
Yeah. A lot of times when they threaten you with that kind of stuff, it's completely hollow. But that's pretty disgusting. When
it was like, I'm so glad that I wasted that guy's time to take pictures of all this stuff.
It happened on a Friday. I was coming to do this. And I stopped in the middle of the road because the truck was there. The fiber truck was there. And I rolled my window down. It's like, are you running fiber to that house over there? And they're like, yes, it'll be there soon. When I got home, the postcard was in the mailbox. And I called them immediately. I scheduled it that night. I got a robocall from Spectrum. And Spectrum was like, we would like to lock you into some major savings for the next 2 years. I bet you would. Didn't work. Well, Bitcoin, it's a lot of people had catastrophic expectations of Bitcoin after the big China smackdown, but it didn't happen. Maybe rampant inflation is offsetting that. I don't know.
Things have recovered nicely.
Things have recovered, and guess who's number one? Not China number one anymore.
U.S. overtakes China as the biggest Bitcoin mining hub after the Beijing ban. Boy, don't you wish you'd bought in at 30? That was just a few weeks ago.
I've made the percentage I've made on Bitcoin is insane, but I still feel like I missed out. You know?
Yeah. We should have bought some in 2009. Just the thousands and thousands of coins.
Oh, you know what else? I was ready to click on the Shiba Inu coin when it was like, I mean, it's like 0.0000000 whatever. But I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this because I'm about to spend 10 grand on the stupid basement, and I'm going to buy this car next year. And I didn't do it. 3 days later, it was up 27,000%. 27,000%. Oh, the fear of missing out, chat. Sometimes it's real.
So if any of you have gotten in and you're feeling extra benevolent and would like to help us retire, you just reach out and let us know.
If you want to give us free money.
Well, you already are.
Some people do that, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, if you are a crypto whale, then you probably have plenty of money to spend on electronics, but how do you get them? There's a shortage. You got to be a scalper. You got to, do these or overpay. Well, Best Buy has a great solution.
Best Buy's new $200 a year membership locks up the PS5 and hot holiday items behind a sign up. So you sign up for this, otherwise you're not going to be eligible to buy a PS5.
It's kind of like Amazon Prime, but the scalping is baked in. The scalpers can't win because Best Buy is already scalping. I don't know. It'll probably work though, right?
Yes.
Because people this Christmas are going to be so desperate.
There's one of the people that we know, his youngest kid is a senior in high school, and about every weekend he's been going to Micro Center with different people from his class, and they buy whatever the limit is of GPUs. That's like limit 1 per household, but it's a different person every time, and then they split the money selling it online.
That's disgusting. Yeah. Have you expressed your disgust?
He's making a lot of money doing that.
Amazon's making a lot of money, but they don't let people pee. Doesn't make it okay. Adobe Flash. It died, but it didn't really die. It kind of died like one of those 80s horror movie villains, right? It's like, oh, it's gone, but maybe not. Maybe there's a foothold in the door to come back. And Adobe themselves have said, no, we're not letting that happen.
Adobe uses the DMCA to nuke a project that keeps Flash alive, secure, and adware free. So there's a Flash player. It turns out that, remember the train that shut down? And
China.
Yeah.
China still uses Flash.
Turns out there's still some things that use Flash. And so there's this weird project that deploys like this update service with a kill switch and also a version of Flash that still kind of works. So you can do that. So this guy on GitHub created an installer, not from Adobe's code, but just created an installer that would let you have the Flash binary. Like it would go and download the Flash binary, but it would neuter it so it didn't have the kill switch and it didn't have the Adobe Phone Home stuff and it didn't have other stuff that may actually be malware. We don't know. That part's not clear.
Well, so the malware was in the Chinese version that's not this guy's version.
Yeah.
So they have a Chinese version that's also hacked, but it's probably spying on you.
Yeah, probably. And so Adobe has DMCA'd this because they're an awful company.
But then not the Chinese one because they know better. They know they can't stop that one.
Sigh. And the DMCA probably didn't even apply to this if the guy is truthful when he says that there's no Adobe code in this. It's literally you downloading a program that will then download another program and do stuff with it.
What do you think the motivation was there for Adobe?
Control. Adobe's always been about control.
What can they benefit from it at this point?
They should open source it in that case, but they're not going to. There's a lot of art and stuff that is tough to preserve with Adobe being terrible people. Just old executives that don't understand, and they're like, you might be messing with our goose that lays golden eggs. Stop it.
I guarantee you, if those executives were 19, they'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't get to the top of Adobe by being a human being.
Yeah.
Magic Leap. Remember them? They'd actually launched their headset, and it was garbage.
It wasn't great.
It was terrible. Remember
They had amazing marketing, terrible product.
they had the thing that threw the rock at you, and it looked like pre-N64. It was absolutely atrocious, and everybody said they're done. But somehow, this goes to show you that there's money out there, investment money, that just can't find any place to go. There's so much hot money flooding into the system right now, which is why your groceries cost what they do.
Magic Leap somehow raised $500 million. That's $500 million to make another AR headset. The Magic Leap 2 is slated for release next year. We'll kick the problem down the road until next year because, of course we will.
That looks awful. Is that the original one?
It looks like the Werner von Braun glasses.
Oh, look how bad that is. I wish Krista was here to judge this. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to buy that. Unless they can incorporate that into the Amazon workplace gaming system, nobody's going to care.
I'm telling you, there's going to be an artificially intelligent personal assistant when you're working the Amazon warehouse to like show you how to do stuff that's also constantly nagging you. And it's like, oh, your pace is falling a little behind. You need to step it up. You need to do 3 more packages in the next 5 minutes in order to meet the minimum quota.
2 days ago, you beat this time by 2%. Do you want some caffeine?
We should do a parody. You know how when you first started playing Half-Life and the HEV suit was talking to you? We should do a parody of that where you're wearing the Amazon suit and it's just harassing you and berating you the entire time. And it's like, oh, a minor fracture is detected. Morphine administered. And it's like, oh, your pace is falling behind. Methamphetamine administered.
That's not a bad idea. It'd be easy to shoot, too.
Yeah.
Just strap the GoPro to your head. Film stuff. We'll put that one down in the idea list, chat. Coinbase, they're making so much money on crypto.
This is their B idea. Like the SEC shot them down, and they're like, all right, I guess we'll do this since
Yeah, they got shut down with the whole. What was the other thing they wanted?
Micro lending.
Yeah. They wanted to let you lend and have fractional crypto, and the SEC was like, "That's a security, bro."
I wonder whatever happened to Kiva because Bill Clinton was big on micro lending in third world countries and the money that you could make off that.
I'm gonna guess if Bill Clinton was involved, the money was embezzled and people were killed.
Well, the SEC didn't shut that one down.
Well, do you think Coinbase has a Clinton on the payroll? Remember, both of the Clintons were corporate lawyers.
Yeah.
They know what they were doing there. Anyway, Coinbase is getting into NFTs.
Coinbase is launching a marketplace for NFTs. So you can mint NFTs and sell them on Coinbase, and they'll take a small cut. Very small.
Oh, there's those cats. Remember the cats?
Crypto kitties.
The Ethereum cats?
I wonder what they've evolved into at this point.
Lost money. We have not been seeing too terribly many headlines about the changing shape of the workplace. Seems like everybody's kind of just kicked the can for the rest of the year because who knows what's happening. But Amazon has taken another further step.
Amazon will allow many employees to work remotely indefinitely, and affected businesses react. Which they had to put the affected businesses react in the headline because otherwise this article will have almost entirely not been about Amazon.
But this is just the corporate workers, not the warehouse drones, obviously.
Those packages aren't going to move themselves.
But
come on.
Yeah, the corporate people, they do have to be like on call. If they feel like they need them in the building, they have to come to the building for that day.
Weekly meetings or monthly meetings or whatever.
Which makes sense. You can't avoid that entirely. You eventually do have to do that. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think the Amazon corporate people have a lot of complaints, right?
No.
They're kind of the fat cats living inside. And then the warehouse workers are the ones living under the porch, killing the rats. Ozy Media. I remember we did a story about this, and we were all sitting here like, what? Newsletter sites cannot make money. Something is wrong about this story. It is not possible for a newsletter website to be successful. It just doesn't happen. Turns out maybe that's true.
Ex-Ozy media employees say the company used dubious tactics to build newsletter following, and that has raised legal questions. The correct headline was, these tactics are probably not legal, and the company's probably going to be fined out of business.
So they've got some whistleblowers, former employees, and they claim that, first of all, is it Ozy? Is that how you pronounce it?
I don't know.
Ozy? I'm going to call it Ozy. They say that Ozy would source your email address to go on the newsletter from anywhere they could get it. They'd buy it, they'd steal it.
It made it sound like as a media company, they would run your mailing list for you. But then when you, like if it was like, a shoe company, and it's like, okay, I'm going to unsubscribe from the shoe company. Well, as soon as you unsubscribe from the shoe company, they would take your email address and add it to their list.
But they would also buy them.
Yeah, from just, the dark web or data leaks or whatever. Yeah.
And
I think one of the first stories we reported on this was there was a data leak somewhere, and then it was like everybody was complaining because it's like, wait a minute, I got signed up for this mailing list, and a bunch of other people popped up. It was like, oh yeah, me too. Some of the first people added.
U.S. Data Corporation and Exact Data. I guess that's Exact Target, right? Their whole thing. And so they'd buy them, they'd steal them, and worse than that, the unsubscribe was fake, according to these guys. You could not escape Ozy because the only thing that mattered to them was their subscriber counts. And they artificially kept them up by any means. No one wants newsletters. Every time I go to a website and the little newsletter thing pops up, I'm just like, who is falling for this?
Yeah.
And how can we remove them from this earth?
What sort of awful agency and or design person is like, yeah, we can go ahead and add that email pop-up to the website?
But no, not them. We know they're terrible. We know what they will do. That's like the scorpion and the frog, right? We know what the scorpion's going to do. Why is the frog doing it? It's the frog we have to change.
Yeah.
Waymo. We're moving on to robots.
Oh, the videos of this were hilarious.
The Waymo cars, we learned last week that they are unleashed now, full self-driving. You pay for it. The whole business model is going, and there's a lot of them. And immediately there was an issue.
CBS, the San Francisco Bay, has this article. It's like, dead-end San Francisco street plagued with confused Waymo cars trying to turn around, quote-unquote, every 5 minutes. So CBS, I think, or the neighbors reporting, called and said, hey, why are there so many Waymo cars congregating on our street? And the Google rep for Waymo said, they're what now? They had no idea that the cars were congregating on the dead-end street for some reason.
And they describe, like, the Waymo cars are actually pretty good at, like, getting in line and waiting their turn. So they described a line of Waymo cars, and the first one was always doing a very difficult 3-point turn in the cul-de-sac. They're just waiting. Can you imagine being sitting in the 20th car? How angry you're going to be?
What? Am I watching a ballet of robots here? I don't understand.
Now, here's the question. In the Waymo software, is there a global map override that an engineer can pop in and fix that?
They're probably going to add something to the software now that's like, if you detect, 3 or 4 other Waymo cars in the area, just stop now. Something has gone wrong. Alert operators.
Yeah, and then there's a rock concert and gridlock. Yeah. It's impressive what they're doing, but it is always obvious that they don't test enough. No one tests enough.
Where are all the edge cases when we've involved this massive, overly complicated AI?
Which is exactly why there's that big argument in the country right now. The biggest one. Face generators, GANs, as they are known, are amazing. You feed them a horde of pictures, and they come up with real or not real human beings, but they look real based on all that data that they've got. But one of the things about them that people have been saying is, hey, you took my face data. I don't want you to have that. What if someone finds me through that? And they're like, no. We're never going to show your face. We're just going to create this face from your data. It's perfectly safe. Maybe not.
AI fake face generators can now be rewound to reveal the faces on which they were trained. So this is pretty genius. The idea is you basically have this thing cough up a bunch of faces, and then you use those faces to determine the input faces.
There you go. There's the faces. Some of these are real people. And I remember I knew somebody who made a lot of money on online poker using this tactic. The trick is you can tell when you hit this API, if you give it a real image that it's seen before, you get the response very quickly. But if you give it an image that it needs to ingest and incorporate into the data set, it responds slowly. So you can actually, just like if you put your email address into a website that's poorly made and it's like, oh, we know you. And you're like, I got you. You're on this website. Now you can find out if the GAN knows your face.
Nice.
With the online blackjack thing, it was aces that you had to split, or you could split. It took it an extra moment if the dealer was holding that. And there was some other edge cases too. Like if weird things happened, there was a delay that you could build a program to observe.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then you knew exactly what was happening.
You knew what the dealer was holding,
or at least you were overwhelmingly in a better position than you were before. I'm shocked by this one, although a lot of people in the comments pointed out he didn't really have to do anything. Basically, they just strapped him to a seat. But still, it's impressive, and I'm very happy for him.
He got up and floated around, though. I mean, the BBC reports Star Trek's William Shatner has blasted into space on a Blue Origin rocket and returned safely to Earth. He is 90 years old, and he made it up, floated around for a bit, and then came back to Earth. Jeff Bezos greeted him personally. He had a very emotional reaction, too.
Had a great quote saying that he hoped he never recovered from the feeling because he was so happy.
Is this what being alive feels like? I felt so cold and dead inside, and this is amazing.
God, you got to admit, he looks good for 90.
He really does.
That's amazing.
I wish my mom could get around like that.
I mean, there's got to be some cosmetic surgery there, right? There they are.
No, that's the rocket landed. The reusable rocket landed at its pad. Their capsule parachuted a few miles away, but they drove there for the photo op.
Oh, but these are the four that went up.
Yeah. And
they get their little astronaut wings, but they're Blue Origin astronaut wings because they didn't really.
Yeah. Well, they made it 60 miles, not 80 or 100 miles or whatever.
Listen, at 90, let's just give it to him.
Yeah. I mean, the video of him floating around the thing, like he turns around and it is just like, he just has this bewildered look on his face, like I can't believe that I'm actually weightless. Like, what is this?
I bet it's cool.
Yeah.
Plus, they're probably doing a reality show, right? They were probably filming. Leading up to this.
It seemed like he wanted to do that so that he could make a little bit of money with it. But it seems like Jeff Bezos took him aside and said, "Look, if you want to do a TV show or something, fine. Just come back and do this again. It's not like this is a one-time opportunity. We're literally doing this every week."
What if Bill Shatner is just hounding Bezos every day? It's like, hey, B-man, I want to go back up. Get me back up there. And he doesn't want to be mean to him, but he's like, these seats are valuable. That would be the TV show. Bill Shatner trying to get back to space. That's the reality show. With the paywall, I think I forgot to read this one somehow, and with the paywall, I have no idea. So you're gonna have to do this one on your own.
Microsoft Project Turing AI is language models goals. Google's OpenAI, blah blah blah. This was kind of an interesting story. What it made me think of was way back a long time ago, Microsoft bought, I think it was Picasa. No, it wasn't Picasa. It was one of those online photo things. And they were going to use the data set of everybody's uploaded photos to do stuff. But Microsoft Legal stepped in, because I was at a presentation for this. And Microsoft Legal stepped in and said, well, these are people's photos. You can't just do this. And meanwhile, rivals at Google were like, hey, they uploaded them to us. We can do whatever we want with them. And so it was sort of a different tack on things ethically. And so this was Microsoft talking about how they're trying to do things different ethically with their AI and other stuff. So this is a little bit lip service and a little bit maybe company pep talk to be like, don't worry, we're not like Google. You don't have to go all whistleblower and like blow up and our AI researcher, is going to leave.
We'll get the ethics thing now too.
Yeah.
So they're dealing with that. I bet that factored into it, right?
Yeah. So this looks like a little bit lip service and a little bit like employee confidence boosting to say, okay, you might be working on stuff that's going to murder people, but we're going to do it the most ethical way possible.
Meanwhile, this is like us trying to change our climate regulations when China's over there just burning everything, because Clearview is China in that scenario. Clearview's like, yeah, we're doing it all, we don't care,
yeah,
we're invading everything. And what was that guy's quote? It was just kind of like, yeah, it's bad, but it's here now. We're just gonna have to deal with it.
I was thinking we've got a story later about California banning leaf blowers. It's like I don't think that's going to stop China from doing what they're doing.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's not on the whole not going to tip the scales too far back in the favor of the planet.
In fact, I don't think the scales will even register that anything happened. But hey, your heart's in the right place, I guess.
The margin of error is a billion times bigger than your gas leaf blower. Well, whatever.
But anyway, this story is an interesting juxtaposition to the Microsoft story, because the Microsoft story is like, we would never do this, and the Google story is like, do what now?
And if you'll recall, first we had the Zuckerberg Hospital. Remember that?
Yeah.
And people were like, no. Everybody knew.
And then we had the Chris Christie Hospital, where the researcher literally brought the governor of New Jersey his own medical records that were de-anonymized, and he was like, oh, we should put a stop to this.
Yeah. So, well, that was the other thing. Google, when they first started doing the health stuff, they were like, no, we're totally going to anonymize all that data. But it was proven very quickly, health data is almost impossible to anonymize, because your particular characteristics, whatever's wrong with you, is pretty unique. Not quite a fingerprint, but pretty close. So that's, and then they were like, all right, we're stepping back from that. But did they? Perhaps not.
Google AI department has been sued for using the health data of 1.6 million National Health Service patients, the NHS patients. I was greatly concerned to find that the tech giant had ended up with my confidential medical records.
You should be. That is a valid concern.
Microsoft is trying to preemptively distance itself from headlines like this. It's like,
While
we must.
they still want to be able to do it.
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah.
For sure. So you got to boil the frog. Google has turned the heat far too high, even though they've been doing this for years. And there have been several steps that Google took forward and then back.
What do you think the heat level is at Facebook? Because if it's on too high at Google, they're like the sink is just,
all the moisture has burned out of the pan. There's just a blackened crust at the bottom at Facebook, and yet there's still money coming out of the oven under it. I don't know how.
I've tried to stop this thing. It just won't stop printing money. I don't know.
The burning smell's not that bad, so we just let it go. We try not to look at it. And while San Diego has their self-driving cars in a gridlock, unable to do anything, Germany has perhaps fielded a more realistic self-driving vehicle.
Germany unveils its first self-driving train. Aren't they all self-driving?
Also, I mean, the guy in the train basically has the little lever, right?
That's like stop and go.
Forward and brake.
Yeah.
And then they got the emergency air brakes, right, if they need those. So there's going to be someone on the train watching the AI. That job is not that much different.
I'm pretty sure Amtrak did this in 96.
Yeah. That's it's going to be a lot more boring, though, as a job, right?
Yeah.
I think it's maybe more dangerous because you're so disconnected.
I forgot the SSH credentials to stop the train. Oh no.
Or I fell asleep, or I was watching. What was the woman that ran over somebody in the self-driving car? The first self-driving car kill. She was watching like Dancing with the Stars or something.
Yeah.
That's sad that not only are you going to go into history as the first person to murder somebody in a self-driving car, but it's going to be in your Wikipedia article that you were watching Dancing with the Stars.
The horror.
Well, this is not the usual robot that we see. We usually see the Spot or that other one that looks like the Doctor Who robots. This one seems to be a little bit bigger and more advanced, but it is doing the same job that people the world over seem to dislike.
New robots patrolling for quote-unquote antisocial behavior, causing unease in Singapore streets. It's basically just a camera on wheels that the police can talk to you. So if you're loitering around, it can roll up to you and be like, what are you doing? Get lost.
Although the wheels look a little beefier than the last one that we saw. This one seems a little more off-road.
All they really need to do with this is just strap a gun to it, and then it'll be intimidating. Because right now it's a little more advanced than Mall Cop. And we have that story.
You thought you were foreshadowing because I would obviously run that story next, but I decided to put that at the end because it's so good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So before we talk about gun robots, we have to talk about this, which I was excited about, but it turns out it's not real.
It's not real.
It doesn't exist. This is just a stupid art project.
Artists create an AI that predicts who police will kill next. So it's not real, but it's a fake story and a fake face based on real stories and real faces of the police murdering innocent people.
Which happens.
Yeah.
can't pretend that it doesn't.
It is an interesting art project in its own right.
And of course, they're getting into, money and class and race and gender.
And where did it happen?
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah.
Basically, they're saying that the police treat people differently based on where they encounter them, which I think has been true since the first policeman ever existed. And Facebook is doing some planning. You remember they have those AR glasses, which aren't AR glasses or VR glasses or anything. They're spy glasses.
Zuckerberg posted some pictures that he took with those. He did not look correct in those. It's like the old episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation where like Data's trying to learn to tap dance or something. It was just something off about it. It was like that.
Wait, so you're seeing a picture of him or his point of view?
Yes. I've seen a picture of him with the glasses on, and it doesn't look right. And then you get the pictures from his point of view from the and like what he's looking at and like what's in his field of vision. It's just like off a little bit.
Well, they are a useless product for sure, unless you want to spy. But they have big plans for what the next generation of those glasses will do. And those plans are terrifying.
Facebook is researching AI systems to see, hear, and remember everything that you do. So the little voice in the back of your head that constantly reminds you of your mistakes will sound like Mark Zuckerberg.
You're sitting there watching TV and it's like, hey, remember this morning when you said that stupid thing at Starbucks to the girl making your coffee that you have a crush on? God, you're an idiot.
Let's post that to your timeline so your friends can make fun of
you. Let's post that to the timeline and tag her and let her know what a loser you are. I would actually love that version of Facebook. That'd be so entertaining. But yeah, so they sell it more as like if you're old and you have dementia, it'd be like, oh, hey, Bob, you didn't take your medication this morning. We went to the cabinet, but you didn't actually take it. Go do that. But again, you're giving up all your privacy. Also, you're going to forget that you're wearing spy glasses constantly.
I think that's by design.
Yeah, and so, you're going to be using the bathroom and doing all sorts of things that you shouldn't be doing when Facebook is recording everything. Literally everything. Oh, no, I told you I moved this to the end, and then I didn't. Oh, how did that happen? The William Shatner story somehow magically appeared twice.
Because it was that good?
But this is, we all knew it was a matter of time. And honestly, I'm going to say it took longer than I thought.
This is not Boston Dynamics.
But does that matter?
U.S. weapons manufacturer, not Boston Dynamics, shows an armed robot dog because Boston Dynamics doesn't have the monopoly on robot dogs. They said it's accurate. It's got pinpoint accuracy up to 1,200 meters.
Jesus.
It's also amphibious, or it can go through swamp water. There's a video of it, something walking through swamp water.
Yeah, the video is pretty incredible if you want to check that out. I mean, he's a very Spot-like. It seems like Boston Dynamics has kind of built the form factor for the basic robot, right?
Yeah.
If this were an RTS, this would be the cheapest and the first unit would be able to build.
Yeah.
And because it just works. But it's got a gun, and it's got a serious gun. I mean, look at that thing. Did it say the caliber? I don't remember the caliber.
I don't remember.
They don't say, and that is really disappointing, disclose.tv. 30-time optical zoom. So you won't see the robot.
No.
You won't hear the sonic boom. It'll just go black.
You'll just not be there anymore.
Be like the end of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Just a black screen.
Was it the Warhammer thing that the Marines imagine that the bullets are time travel devices and it's transporting you to a time you're no longer alive?
I don't know if I've heard that one before.
I don't know. I don't remember.
The Space Marines have bolters, which are not necessarily bullets. They're more like little missiles. So they're destructive forces. Very high. And it's not the same kind of... I think you would know if you got hit by a bolt.
Okay.
Yeah. For a millisecond, you would know. Then you'd be a mist.
Yeah, I mean, if the bullets get much faster, it's going to be like a railgun territory. It's like, oh, that's 8 times the speed of sound. Okay.
I'm sure we'll get there. Imagine when we're shooting those are going between planets, and you have to intercept them because it's the the kill vehicle.
The relativistic kill vehicle.
Yeah.
It's like, this thing is only the size of a Buick, but it's traveling at 99.99999 C. So it's got an ungodly amount of energy.
Now we're going to take it down to the size of a Miata because we don't want to destroy the whole planet. Just Russia.
We just want to poke a hole from Russia to the other side of the planet.
And then, Friday. What have we not done yet? We haven't done social media.
Social media and nonsense.
And nonsense.
Nice.
Some would say those are the same.